My name is Jimmy Lavender. I'm co-founder of Bishop, along with my brother Bobby Lavender.
What city did the Bishops originate in?
Los Angeles, South Central, Florence-Firestone area in the northern part of Watts.
And what year did you guys begin to form?
From June 1972.
Kev Mac video, you know, this is for sure. Kev Mac video, open your soul, represent your ghetto, baby. Kev Mac video, you know, this is for sure. Kev Mac video, open your soul, represent your ghetto, baby. For the dime moves and the lokes, for the 6-4s on spokes, for the OGs that did a dime, came back around on parole.
Where'd you grow up at?
Florence-Firestone, 92nd and Beach Street.
Single parent or two-parent household?
Two-parent household.
How many brothers and sisters?
There's 5 of us.
And what kind of occupation did your parents have at the time you guys moved to the area?
My mother works at General Motors, and she was the foreman of the union, and my father was a plater.
What was the racial makeup of the neighborhood at the time?
It was probably 85% black, 15% Hispanic.
Wow. Is that community considered Watts or is that LA?
It's LA, Florence-Firestone.
Okay. Now tell me, who was Bobby Lavender?
Bobby's my brother, 1 year older than I am. Bobby passed away from cancer back in 1994.
And you joined Big Brother's gang, or you guys formed together?
We formed together.
What schools did you attend?
We first started off elementary school. Bobby now went to Harrison Street School over in East LA. I was too young for school. I started over in the Pueblo Projects at Holmes Avenue. Then we moved to the Florence-Firestone Watts area and went to 92nd Street School, on to Drew Junior High School, then Jordan High School. I ended up graduating from Jefferson High School in LA.
Was it any Bloods there?
We knew nothing about the term blood. There was always gangs, but no such thing as a blood. So we did have gangs, yes.
What years was you at Jefferson?
I was a Jeff I made a couple of trips. You know, I wasn't an honor student, so I went back and forth. I was at Jeff mainly from 1970 to 73.
Okay. Was the Forte Crips there?
Forte Crips. Yeah, they were there, and they were there in numbers. My grandmother lived on 43rd, so I grew up shooting marbles and playing in dirt with the Forte Crips. Yes, they was there.
Any names stand out to you?
Oh, yes, Forte, Pitbull. Pitbull was a shot caller. My cousin Milton Lavender, the Ford brothers, Daryl and Milton Ford, Black Johnny, Peanut, Greg, Cliff, Jr., all my childhood buddies, yes.
So you had a cousin from Forte?
Oh, yes.
Were you guys tight?
Very close. First cousins. I spent more time, or as much as time in Forte neighborhood as I did in Bishop neighborhood. They used to call me Jimmy the Bishop.
And what years were those that you hung over there?
I was there from, well, again, my grandmother lived on 43rd, so we been there since we were probably 8 years old till about 1974, 75.
So you left Jefferson in 73. Do you remember when the Bishops in the Rolling 60s area have formed?
That had to be around 1973. Brother Lucky had moved from our neighborhood, and he moved to the west side, and he started Bishop over there, and we became very close.
About how old was Lucky, and he lived in your neighborhood and moved west?
Yes, and Lucky was probably about 16. He was about 16 when he started Bishop over there in the 60s.
Who were some of the guys Lucky recruited?
Well, it was Lucky, Mark Bolden, Bad News, and Big Huey that ran the west side. There was KC. There was Oh God, I keep forgetting this guy's name. Iceberg. Iceberg was there. Uh, those guys always came back and forth in our neighborhood. Those mentioned guys right there, they were the main West Side bishops.
So you got bishops in the 60s, bishops in Florence-Firestone. What about Compton and Watts and other cities? Or
Yeah,
communities?
the West Side was our first other bishop set. And then we went to Compton, which today is known as the Limehood Pyrus. That was the Compton bishops. And then we moved from there to the Pueblo Projects. And that was our other bishop gang. And then the Mexicans in our neighborhood was Am Street Watts. And then they became like our fourth bishop set.
So you guys had Mexicans part of your organization?
Oh, yeah. And as a matter of fact, by Am Street Mexicans joining up with Bishop, that didn't set well with the Pueblo bishops who went to Huntington Park High School. And Am Street Mexicans was at war with the Valencia 13. So by the Pueblos joining us and Am Street being bishop, they feared a potential war with the Florence 13, which had the Pueblos badly outnumbered.
Interesting.
See, we lived in Pueblo before we moved to Watts. And we would always jump the train and go back to Pueblos. So when I got into it with some Crips at Jeff, and then I ended up going over to Pueblos. And as a former guy from Pueblo, I went back and started the Pueblo Bishops, along with Reggie Moore, Darrington, Little Mike, the Twins, Fat Rat, Huey. We were Stanley, Geechee, Philly. They were the Pueblos and the Pueblo Bishops.
So you guys were fighting Crips while you was at Jefferson, and were you guys Bloods yet?
No such thing as a blood at all in my time frame. Pueblos, interesting, Pueblos didn't get along with the Four Trays. But my grandmother lived on Fort Trey. So I was able to bring those two together to stop fighting. So they became not so much friends, but at the same time, not at war either.
Good shit. What was your relationship like with Black Johnny?
I didn't have a relationship with Black Johnny.
Were you guys enemies? Rivals?
No.
No. Just didn't know him?
I knew him and he knew me, but we wasn't enemies, no.
Okay. So how does Compton bishops come into play?
Same thing. Blue Boy, Michael Roseberg, had moved from our neighborhood and went to Compton, and he started the Compton Bishops with a guy named Bitter Dog.
Okay, what about the beginning of the Crips?
Wow. I've always called the avenues, we can't forget about the avenues. I've always called the avenues the father of the Crips, and this is why. Raymond Washington always wanted to be an avenue, but he did not live in the avenue territory. He hung around with Robert Munson, the brother of the leader, Craig Munson, but he did not live in avenue territory, so we call him a wannabe. So Craig Munson ended up knocking out Raymond Washington, which was, I mean, come on, you got a 19 or 20-year-old Craig Munson jumping on a 15-year-old Raymond Washington. So Raymond decided to start his own gang, the Crips. They were from 79th, which is Nadeau Street, to Florence, from Compton Avenue to Broadway. Raymond and his crew would be called East Side Crips. And then Bulldog would have the West Side Crips from San Pedro to Broadway. That was the first West Side Crip, was Bulldog. Now, I say this, again, if Craig Munson would allow Raymond Washington in the avenues, perhaps there never would have been a Crip.
Are people looking at this, when they hear about Craig Munson knocking out Raymond, there's going to be people that say that didn't happen. So let me ask you this. Were you there, or did you get this from a credible source?
I got it from a credible source. Alden Jones, any original Crip, and I mean original. I'm talking about these guys would be 63, 62, 61 years old. These are the people that you would talk to about this right here.
What's that you got next to you?
This is a book. This is our yearbook for 1969, Drew Junior High School. Tells a story.
Name some of the guys you could find in that book.
Okay. Well, here we have 69 books, so it's kind of here. Right here is Raymond Washington. Just months later, he would get kicked out this school and go to Edison and start the Crips. Here is Bula, Big Boo. Pretty cool guy, real cool guy. One of the big muscle guys around campus, and he was from Avenue, which again I call the father of the Crips. Raymond wasn't allowed in their gang. Here, co-founder of Bishop, my brother Bobby Lavender, all in the same school. Here we have Conrad Williams. He got really known for what happened at the Hollywood Palladium, the aggression of the Crips and what they did and how they was carrying on, taking people's leather coats, and they beat the guy to death over his jacket. There's more of us to come. Okay, holding the sign of Homeroom 58 here. We're in the A8, so we 1 year behind those other guys. This good-looking guy right here, that's me. I'm a little taller than the other guys, but I decided I want to hold the sign, so who gonna say what? Here's Eric Williams, the brother of Conrad. He also was involved in the Palladium thing. And right here is the Wizard of Oz, Ozzie Smith, Hall of Famer, best shortstop to ever play the game.
For all you baseball fans. Then you got the Godfather Jamel Barnes in
The
there.
Godfather Jamel Barnes.
And Forehead from Denver Lane.
Oh yeah, they all in here. Okay. What happened to that? Here we go. Book is falling apart. Right here is the Godfather, Jamel Barnes. He lived in Avalon Gardens at the time. Avenues used to chase him home every day from school, and then later he would become a Crip. And then around here we have Michael Berry, Forehead from the Denver Lanes, and there's Space Ghost up here from the Bishops. 8 out of the big games in LA, 8 of the leaders came from this junior high school. Big Mousy from APB's Acton Park Boys went here. AC from Pyru went here. Too Sweet from the Bounty Hunters went here. All at Drew, man.
Well, Drew raised a lot of leaders.
Drew was a gladiator school.
Gladiator school.
Gladiators. You wear tennis shoes to school because you fight.
Those fights on campus all the time. Man.
All the time. Cross the street at the gas station.
So what was the reason Raymond left that school? Did he get kicked out, or he had to go to the next grade, or what?
Raymond was doing Raymond. Raymond was a bully. Raymond Raymond would just walk up on you and sock you. I mean, if you were an A student, it didn't matter. Passing by Raymond Washington was socked in the individual. And let me make this clear. I keep hearing people doing documentaries and interviews, and they keep calling Raymond Washington a hog. Well, maybe he was to you, but he sure wasn't to us. He fight, but he wasn't rated to us as one of the better fighters.
How about Ray Boyce? A lot of people say Ray Boyce would be the heir apparent to Raymond. What you think about Ray Boyce?
I never seen Ray Boyce fight. I knew Ray Boyce. He's a personal friend. He was known to be a knockout artist.
If there was one guy you went to war with the fist, who would that one guy be?
To fight me or be with me?
To be along with you.
Give me bad news from the 60s. Give me Mark Bolden. Give me Mark's not going to run out on you. He's going to fight there. If you both got to die together, you give me Mark Bolden. And the second person from Bishop, or you give me Pookie, or you give me Fanatic from Bishop, or my brother Bobby.
Did anybody in your neighborhood take up karate?
Bobby had a 5th degree black belt. Matter of fact, the Bishops was known. Foggy Moore, leader of the Pebbles, had a brown belt. Took it from a brother named Lieutenant. Was a well-known instructor back in those days. Lucky had a black belt. Mark Bolden, I think he had a green belt or so. He was a martial art person. Tuku had a green belt. Fanatic, not only that Fanatic had a black belt, he ran class competition, state competition in the 100-yard dash and went state competition. So if he was after you, it was a hell of a way to get away from you.
All right, let's distinguish something. When Bishops formed in Florence and Avenues area, Florence, Crenshaw, Florence, Western, that was a pre-blood and Crip. Well, that was a pre-blood gang. That was a non-blood gang, non-Crip gang.
Non-Crip gang. Westside Bishops?
Yes.
Non-Crip, right.
And how did you guys feel when those guys branched off?
It didn't really bother us because you have to understand, in our days, your friendship meant more than a name of some gang. Those Westside Bishops had merged with the Crips in their neighborhood that they grew up with. And Mark was right. It didn't make sense fighting those guys, so they became known as the Rolling 60s. To us, that just meant that we had more friends on the west side. It was no different than the original Crips with Psycho Mike, Raymond, Washington, and Alden. We all went to junior high school together. We played at the same park. It's the same situation they had. Those guys was our friends and will always be our friends. My grandmother lived on 43rd in Fort Trey, and it was one of the hardest Crip neighborhoods. Jimmy the Bishop. I ate with him. I partied with him. Our friendship comes before the name of a gang. You know, back in those days, we gave our word. Now they say, well, that's on my hood. It's the difference. We said, that's my word, and your word meant everything. Four Trays would come to our neighborhood and party. As a matter of fact, the early Four Trays even wrote down on other Crip sets with us when there was a problem in Watts. Sure did.
Did you know Joe Barker?
Yeah, I know Joe, bounty hunter. I know Joe.
What type of guy was Joe?
We shook hands on a number of times, but again, when my connection, my friendship with bounty hunters would be Junior Thomas, Too Sweet, Bishop Hall, Michael Hall, Tata, Ty V. These were my friends. Joe Bark, again, because you're in the game don't mean you have to be friends or you talk to everybody. So we didn't have that real close, relationship. If you see me in the projects, we'll probably just wave at each other, that type of thing.
Did you guys used to go to Watts Stacks?
Watts Festival?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We messed up the Watts Festival. We messed it up.
Who was we?
All the gangs. Right after the Watts riot in '65, they started the festival. We had carnivals, black businesses coming out there selling good. I mean, it was a real nice thing and the only thing that we really had left in Watts. But, of course, I'm going to blame these guys because they're to be blamed. Here come the Crips. Here come the Crips doing the Crip thing. That Crip thing was the pattern that Raymond got from the fathers of the Crip, the Avenues. Taking people jacket, watches, jacking people, robbing people. So here they come at the festival doing that. And then here comes the different gangs, the bounty hunters, the bishops, and Pyrus. Now we all fighting. All at the festival, making it bad for everybody. So eventually the festival was shut down.
All right, so you had mentioned that A.C. Moses, which is A.C. Babalui, was an Eastside Crip at one time. I believe you mentioned that.
No, AC was went to Drew.
Okay. AC originally was an Eastside Crip. He'll tell you that itself. So I'm wondering, when the Pyrus and Crips was messing up the festivals, did you know Pyrus? Did you know AC was part of Pyrus back then?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Pyrus was first Crips. They were first Crips. And whatever Vince and Putnam had a difference, they broke and became Pyrus Street and the West Side Pyrus, and then eventually would get with the Ludus Park Hustlers, who then would turn Pyrus as well.
Did you know Bartender?
My boy, know him well, my road dog. I used to go pick Bartender up quite often, and he needed to get out of Compton. He had such a target on his back. I pick him up. We hang around all day in L.A. I told bartender just a few months before he was killed that I had a child on the way, and it's time that we get out this gang thing and stop doing that. And he agreed. He said he's getting out of it. And I don't know, maybe a month or so later, he was killed at Dudos. But to really know him, what a good guy. A soldier, a real one, but a good guy if you knew him.
What was the relationship like with Bishops and Grape Street?
Grape Streets came at the end of my gang banging, but closeness. First, from what Arthur Day, the original Big Huncho, Wayne is the younger brother, and who they call today Big Huncho, but it's originally his older brother Arthur. And I talked to him one day, and I asked him, why did they turn Grape Street? And he told me because he had went to go see some sister over the Nickersons, and the bounty hunters were sweating him. So he came and got back with the Crips. Now that came from Arthur Day. It was a closeness with us during the low riding days when Wayne and Melvin LaShaw and LT LaShaw would come over in the neighborhood, and we all would wax our cars up and go out riding down by the beach somewhere or kicking it. So we had a real good friend with the original and the leaders of Grape Street. As a matter of fact, later on, what we call the alley bishops, the ones that lived close to the Jordan Down projects, at that time, the Grape Street was on the south part of the projects, and the Jordan Down was called Crip Dogs, and they were at war with bishops. And then later on, unfortunately, some people was killed in the projects during the shootout, and alley bishops seemed to have sided with the projects, and the projects then turned Grape Street, and so did the alley bishops. That's right, the alley bishops turned Grape Street.
No run-ins with Tookie and Compton?
Nah. I saw Tookie and met Tookie for the first time at the Watts Festival. Barefoot Pookie and Cowboy and all those guys was on the ground. The grass wrestling and playing around, and Tookie was standing here, and Raymond right next to him, Bobby, and then me. This is before we know who killed Skip, so we wasn't beefing with the Crips, but we were bishops. And Raymond turned over to Tookie and said, "Hey, Took, the Lavender brothers, Bobby and Jimmy." Took just nodded his head like he was the man, and Bobby smiled and he nodded his head back, and I just looked at him. People keep talking about Raymond as this such a fighter, but Raymond was more of an athlete. I mean, a natural athlete. This guy can tumble like you don't believe, and he can swim. A really good athlete. Had he focused on doing that, he'd have gone a long way.
Now, I talked to just a small number of people who don't believe there was ever a big meeting with the Blood Alliance. You know anything about having a meeting with the Pyrus, bounty hunters, swans, and everybody?
We had meetings mainly during the truce, but I don't know of any meeting with everybody, and I'll tell you why. The non-Crip sets that live way in the jungles, and the Van Ness, Brims, and all those guys, they didn't come to watch to the meetings. They didn't come to what we call South Central. At that time, the Crenshaw area was not called South Central, so they didn't too much cross over west for whatever reason. We went to them a couple times, but they would never come to us. So I never attended a meeting that had everybody.